Okay, hi, my name is Christine Zere. I am an International Development Program at the University of Ottawa, and I'm currently interning with the Women Peace and Security Network in Canada. So I've had the amazing opportunity of meeting this woman right here at Dita Beat, who is the president of the South Sudan Women Foundation, and I've had the opportunity of attending their meeting that they had just a few weeks ago. And it's such a great honor for me to have her with me, for her to share the different passions that she's had in creating this organization in Ottawa. So Adit, thank you so much for coming and agreeing to this interview with me. And just to start off, could you just tell us a little bit more about the organization and how you went about creating it and starting it?
Thank you for that question. So, one motivation, the first motivation I have is I believe in a better South Sudan and a peaceful South Sudan, which I think is not possible without the women voices. So, the motivation is what women can do better, what are they doing before, and what can they do better. My personal motivation as well is I believe that nothing is impossible. And it is not making a change is not about being a woman. It's about working together as a community.
Yes.
So the South Sudan women, where I took the lead in the establishment of the South Sudan Women Foundations, because I believe in the capacity of women. We want to see women active in the community leadership, in addressing each other, working together, regardless of their tribes, regardless of the other differences that they have, and to really come to their roles as good citizens that can play a very positive roles. So the South Sudan Women Foundation is all about, to sum it up, building the new basis for women, the new foundation, the new beginning that we have never seen our mothers doing it before. So we will have to see, our goal is to see the South Sudanese women as active as the men in the nation building, in community building. They have been good mothers over the years,
Yes.
but their voice always missing when it comes to peace, national unity, like all about community issues, all these things. So I have these great passions in saying we can have a better country.
Yes.
But at the same time, what if women come together? Like the way men actually united in addressing national issues.
Yes.
What about the women? Can they do it better? So the goal of the foundation right now, we have a lot of bases to build. So, but the first basis is peace and unity. If there is a possibility that women can step in and even unite their own community that are broken based on tribes. So, is there any possibility? So our current campaign is about the role of women, the voice of women in peace. How can we create those voices? Do they really exist? How can we lift the voice of women that often go unheard in the community? So totally, the South Sudan Women Foundation will work together side by side to build the country, even challenge their own decisions. So you look at the South Sudan, people will say 25% women in the government. But how is it about numbers?
Yeah.
So at South Sudan Women Foundation, we don't believe about numbers. We believe in the individual efforts, in solving their own issues, in really stepping up to leadership. You don't need to be acknowledged to really be a change in your community.
Yeah.
So,
That's true. And as we are looking at the 60 days campaign, right? For December 10th, we'll be celebrating the International Human Rights Day. And as a president of the organization and foundation, do you see any linkages between what South Sudan Women's Foundation can do in terms of addressing international human rights?
absolutely, there's a lot that can be drawn on that. Because one thing is, when you think about gender-based violence, there are two people. There is the perpetrator and the victims. Most of the time, women are the victims. So the South Sudan Women Foundation really think about the people who are really low in terms of like being oppressed and being like, facing all this challenge because they are women or they are men. But so you cannot actually eradicate or even eliminate gender violence when you don't empower the victim. So it has to start with education, and it has to start with giving voice to the victim and creating space for the victim really to see themselves that they have the right to defend their own right, to speak for their own rights. So if you look at the case of domestic violence, which is part of the gender-based violence, if we have a society that women can challenge men and say, hey, you don't have the right to beat me. You can talk to me.
Yes.
In the long run, that becomes a culture that people get used to talking. So I remember in my family, because I can tell, like, whatever my brother, that you don't have the right to beat me. And I can explain to that. I think next time we will not be mad and think about beating me because they know where I stand. So the South Sudan Women Foundation is more about women asserting their own rights. And let's move away from this illusion that like there is someone that will save me. I know in African society it's all about God, but let's look at the importance of individual agency. If women can fight for their own right, if they speak up for the challenge facing them, well, stop being submissive to abusive culture. I think it will reach a point that there are a lot of educations, and the next generation even will be better. So the South Sudan Women Foundation will help a lot because we want to see women as a change and discussing this issue and say, hey, I remember in my meeting with some women said, these men have been keeping us down. And this is the right time we have to step up.
Because if not now, when?
When?
If not now,
when? So total is about individuals stepping in. Because if you remain as the victim, as silent victims, nothing will change. And to address those things, you have to speak up. People will not respect you if you don't speak up for you. If you don't even know your right, they will violate you because they don't know it. You are the only one to educate them.
And as I understand it, you keep mentioning this idea of going against what is known to be culture. Especially in the African context where we have these embedded norms that are not good for anybody, but then because they've existed for such a long time, nobody has ever challenged them. But you talk about this idea of needing this new movement where we challenge what we assume to be good, or what we assume to be our own identity as a people, right? Can you please elaborate on that?
Okay. When it comes to our own identity, we talk about culture. And culture has the way of life. But there is a lot of misunderstanding here that everything is culture. Even gender-based violence can be justified in the name of culture. So if you, in the South Sudanese community, most of them, I don't want to generalize all the community in South Sudan. There are different tribes, groups, and ethnic groups. But you will see most of these culture, they practice the wife beating. Like, woman, most of the time being beaten by men, the brother or the husband. And it would be justified as the way, as a discipline and part of culture. But one thing that we are missing again is, like, should we practice bad culture in the name of, our
upholding a fallen system,
So it's more about being critical of what we do and challenge and let individuals live to their own freedom they want, to the principles of human rights.
Exactly, yes.
When you also think about what rape as one of the gender-based violence, it is not only the action that's the problem. It is very important to look at the link between the culture too and the why rape happened. So what happened is, in the society, there is a high inequality in terms of gender discrimination, how we think about women, whatever we think about men. The rape actually is complicated by how society even position women. Because I ask myself, why men would rape women? Like as part of the weapon of war? Like why some men would use, not all men, why some men would use gun, like would use rape as a tool. And it comes down to how society perceive women, position women. So women in some society has been perceived as treasure, as property, something valuable, something that is like the body is secret. The body is owned by certain individuals. It is like I wrote in one of my poem like collections that when you're born, I was born and I end up to be a bank account. So it is bank account in the way in some culture when you look from the context of the bride price and how you get married, how someone owns you and all these things. It's like you are a resource to your family, you are wealth to your family. And you end up to be a property to another. So if you look at in those societies, some men can be tempted to use rape as the way to anger. And this will even anger other men. They're like, oh yeah, those men who own those women, they're like, why do they rape a woman? Like, it's so humiliating to them. It's challenging the manhood as well. And then complicate the war. Because there will be revenge, there will be a lot of anger. Because in this society, raping a woman is like killing. Which is also true. But it's all come down to culture, how they perceive women, you know?
It's almost, the way that I'm understanding it, it's almost as if the way that you view women is you have to almost make her less of a human being. And that makes it okay to sort of do all these other things that we do as a society to make it seem like it's not so bad. Because she's not really a human being, right? And the more you devalue her as a person, the easier it is to continue perpetuating violence against her with no consequences, or even without the idea of thinking back to your own actions as a person or a human being, right? And so I wanted to also ask you, what do you think is sort of the root causes, even within that culture, whereby you find that women are continuously marginalized, continuously faced with situations or even conflicts that are so against who they are as an individual. So how do you tackle root causes of gender-based violence within a conflict country or within a conflict war-torn country?
One thing conflict actually wasn't the gender-based violence. Increase the incidences, the occurrence of gender-based violence. People become vulnerable. And if you want to address gender-based, the best way is to address the root cause. The best way to address gender-based violence is to address the root cause. And if you eliminate war, you will have the space to focus on educating people and establish institutions that are aware of gender-based violence. So, in the case of South Sudan, for sure, women are now confined in protection camps, displaced camps, because the environment the atmosphere is so threatened to be existed. Not only rape, even kill. So, the point is, the gender-based violence increase because of war. And this is where the role of the international community can come in. Because if you look at war, everything is interconnected. And if there is anything we can do to address the root cause, then we can focus on really achieving what we want. That's how I look at it.
That's good. That's good. And when you talk about bringing in the international community when we talk about war, what role do you think the international community has in really addressing human rights violations in war-torn countries? Because there's two sides. I feel like there's two sides of the coin. I feel like there's one group that thinks that the international community does little to nothing in terms of addressing these gaps between what they say they're going to do and what's actually implemented on the ground. And then there's another group that thinks that the international community is doing such a great job. But then at the same time, when you look at the different politics, even within the international community, you realize that it's not really what is written down as a policy is not actually implemented as it.
When I mention about the role of the community, it's more about working together as a global community in addressing those challenges. If you look at the international community in terms of the humanitarian aids,
Yes.
they have invested dollars and equipment time to address the humanitarian needs. But in case of South Sudan, the international community, well, these are the IGAD, other Western countries playing the role there. Canada is one of them. Is that they have tried the able, but one thing is missing. It is always every dream of us say we can solve it, we can do it together.
Yeah.
But how politics is very complicated, very complex. Really, it needs people to think about their positions and how they are actually even contributing positively or negatively. So if you look at how do you call this? Let's go to real politics and look at the relationships of, because sometimes work great opportunities, but it disadvantage other people as well. So if you look at the Indian community, that group that are in conflicts because of war. Themselves, they're in conflict and they're playing a cold war on each other and worsen the situation. That situation should not be allowed when we think about our role as global leaders, you know.
Especially when they constantly push forward this agenda for
human rights, global leaders, this concern that we are one people, you know, and we have shared responsibility to some extent. The other issues is there is a lot of, if you think about the case of South Sudan, which actually made me more angry, is that there's a lot of expectation with the role that the internet community will play. So, I'm not sure about people in the Western country, but people in South Sudan always said, we need the internet community to bring peace. You, like Canada, you should bring peace, you know, we need peace. It's kind of looking at peace in the wrong position.
As something external.
Something external. When these two people are fighting, I remember the question Hampson has when he was here. Hampson is a Canadian ambassador to South Sudan. Yeah, he was asking from this year, how can we actually bring peace in South Sudan? Because I have been in South Sudan for almost a year now, and people are asking me to bring peace.
How is he supposed to do that?
How can we do that as Canadians, you know, with our allies? So, it actually, at the end of the conversation, boiled down to looking at peace in the wrong place. So that the warring party are the one, or the conflict groups are the one to unite, you know, to solve their problem. And then there will be support if they need the resources. Totally. The South Sudan Women Foundation, we believe that a better South Sudan is possible